All right, let's jump right in. There's this huge shift happening in the insurance world. It's called IFRS 17. Now, I know it sounds super technical, but stick with me, because at its heart, it's actually pretty simple. It's all about one thing: transparency. We're talking about a whole new rulebook designed to show us what's really going on with an insurer's finances.
To really get what this is all about, let's start with a simple question. Picture this. You've got a giant barrel of apples in front of you. How in the world do you find the few rotten ones hidden way down deep inside? It's a tricky problem, right?
Well, for the insurance industry, IFRS 17 is basically the answer to that exact problem. See, for a long time, it was way too easy for the profits from good insurance contracts to completely hide the losses from the bad ones. Everything was just mixed together in one big financial barrel. IFRS 17 says, nope, not anymore. It forces a very specific, very revealing sorting process. And that was the core issue. You could look at an insurance company and it might seem perfectly healthy on the surface. But underneath, they could be sitting on huge losses from certain policies and you'd never know it. This made it nearly impossible for anyone, investors, analysts, you name it, to judge the real health of the business. So how does IFRS 17 fix this? Well, it lays out this mandatory two-step sorting process. It's pretty straightforward, really. First, you have to identify your portfolios. Then, you have to take each of those portfolios and divide them into groups based on whether they're going to make money or lose money. Let's break down what that actually means. So, step one is all about sorting the contracts by the kind of risk they carry. This is our first big move in organizing that giant barrel of apples into smaller, much more manageable batches. The official term here is a portfolio. According to the standard, a portfolio is just a group of insurance contracts that have similar kinds of risks and, just as important, are managed together as a single unit. This is our first level of organization.
So what's that look like in the real world? It's pretty intuitive. Think of different product lines an insurer sells. All their whole life insurance contracts could be one portfolio. All their annuities could be another. And of course, all their car insurance policies would be in their own portfolio. Each one has a totally different risk profile, right?
And this brings us right back to our analogy. Creating these portfolios is exactly like sorting that messy, mixed-up barrel of apples into separate, clean bins. You've got your Granny Smiths over here, your Red Delicious over there. They're all apples, sure, but they're different enough that you need to handle them differently.
Okay, so we've got our apples sorted by type. Now for step two. This is where we look inside each of those bins and sort the apples by their quality, or in insurance talk, by their profitability.
And IFRS 17 is super specific about this. It makes insurers split each portfolio into, at most, 3 distinct groups. First up, you have your onerous contracts. These are the definite losers. They're expected to be loss-making from day one. Then you've got your non-onerous contracts, the clear winners. And finally, there's a bucket for the remaining contracts, which are kinda on the fence.
So if you took a single portfolio, let's say all the car insurance policies, it might break down something like this. Maybe 65%, the vast majority, are clearly profitable. Another 25% are in that murky remaining group. But here's the kicker. A full 10% are identified right from the start as onerous, in other words, as money losers.
Back to our apples. This is the final crucial sort. You take your bin of Granny Smiths and you make 3 piles. The non-onerous group, those are the perfect, shiny apples. The remaining contracts are like the bruised ones. They might be okay, but you're not so sure. And the onerous contracts? Bingo. Those are the rotten apples we've been looking for all along.
Now, there's one more really critical piece to this whole sorting puzzle. It's a rule that you absolutely cannot ignore, and it's all about timing.
So with all these new requirements, what do you think is the single biggest, most unbreakable rule an insurer has to follow when they're making these groups?
The answer is 1 year. It's simple but powerful. Contracts issued more than 1 year apart can never, ever be put in the same profitability group. That's a hard and fast rule, no exceptions. So why does this 1 year cutoff matter so much? Well, think about it. The world changes fast. The risks tied to a policy written today are completely different from one written 10 years ago. This rule prevents companies from mixing old, profitable contracts with new, potentially riskier ones. It forces a true apples-to-apples comparison. So, we've done all this sorting. We found the rotten apples. Now what? This is where the real accounting magic happens. And believe me, it completely flips how profits and losses get reported. And here's where it gets really interesting. For the onerous group, or rotten apples, the company has to take the hit right away.
The entire expected future loss has to be recognized on their books immediately. Boom, no more hiding. But for the profitable group, it's the exact opposite. The profit is not recognized up front. Instead, it gets put into a special holding account and is only earned gradually over the life of the policies.
That special holding account is called the contractual service margin, or CSM for short. The easiest way to think of it is as a bucket of future unearned profit. As the insurer actually provides the coverage year after year, they get to take a little bit of profit out of that CSM bucket and count it as revenue. It gives a much smoother and, frankly, a much more honest picture of their earnings.
Okay, let's pull back for a second and look at the big picture. We've talked about portfolios and onerous contracts and the CSM, but why does all this painstaking sorting actually matter in the real world?
At the end of the day, it's all about these four things. It delivers that transparency we talked about at the beginning. It makes it impossible to mask losses. It forces companies to be consistent. And maybe the most important part for investors is that it finally allows for a true, fair comparison between different insurance companies.
So the main takeaway here is pretty clear. By forcing insurers to sort their business, first by risk, then by profitability, IFRS 17 simply gets rid of the hiding spots. It gives everybody a much truer, more reliable view of how an insurer is actually performing. Which leaves us with a really fascinating final question. Now that the light is being shown into all these dark corners, what are we going to see? What hidden risks, or maybe even hidden strengths, are about to be revealed across the industry? The sorting is finally done. And now we all get to see what was really in that barrel all along.